Here's what's coming up on today's show.
Nobody should invest in anything they don't understand. And so you're doing that first step of helping people understand what's going on right now and how it could change in the future and how it could affect their future.
This is the Retire Happy podcast with John Amarino, fiduciary financial advisor at Securus Financial in the San Diego area, and Thomas O'Connell, president of International Financial Advisory Group, Inc. in Rockaway, New Jersey. Together, they'll be keeping retirement happy from coast to coast.
Welcome back to another episode of the Retire Happy podcast. I'm your host on the West Coast, John Amarino, and I am joined by my esteemed co-host on the East Coast, Mr. Tom O'Connell. Tommy, how you doing?
Hey, John. Hello, everybody. Good to be back with everybody. Nice winter weather we're having out here now finally on the East Coast. And I'm really excited about our guest today, John. It's a little departure from what we normally do, but I think the folks out there are going to get some real good value out of it.
Yeah. And, where we're going to talk about in today's show is Tom and I have always talked about the value of comprehensive financial planning, right? Not just being keyholed and focusing in on investments like so many people and even advisors do, but really bringing tremendous value in looking at anything that can harm your financial future and looking to add value, whether it's through tax, estate, healthcare, long-term care protection, asset protection. And one of the things that when I started my podcast and then Tom obviously joined was leading from education. And a little over a year ago, Tommy and I were introduced to a phenomenal figure in our lives now, and she's made such a huge impact. And that's Tom and I's director of communications for both of our private practices, Miss Erin Kennedy, or Mrs. Erin Kennedy, I should say. And the impact she's made on helping us deliver our education through some of our videos. So we're going to talk to Erin about the way we educate and what she's learned along the way. So I want to give you a brief intro to Erin. Erin spent nearly 20 years in the TV industry, most recently her last assignment being CBS Chicago. She's won several Emmys over the years and the Edward Murrow Award, and she was hired on by Brookstone Capital Management, and through that partnership became Tom and I's director of communications and has really impacted both of our practices and both of our approaches. And so without further ado, I want to introduce probably one of the most important people when it comes to Tom and I's practice, Mrs. Erin Kennedy.
And today's guest, the Director of Communications at Brookstone Capital Management, it's Erin Kennedy.
John, Tom, it's so good to talk to you. I'm so glad my letter writing campaign finally paid off that I can be on your podcast.
Well, we're happy to have you. And just for our listeners, if you see us, John or I, on social media, Facebook or LinkedIn, you'll note that Erin started her broadcasting career when she was about 5. Because I'm just buttering you up for the next time, Erin.
Well, and
yes,
another important trend that I like to hop on there and that we've had in the first couple of podcasts with Mark and Ed is that Tommy's the oldest person in the room.
I've noticed that's a recurring theme in the podcast is how old Tom is.
Ed is older than I am.
So
Actually, no, let me go there. So the very first video that I recorded with Tom was when he was celebrating his 25-year anniversary as an independent financial advisor. So we did a really great 10-minute video that kind of talked about why he got into it, his proudest accomplishments, and his goals. And it's such a treat to work with somebody who has so much experience. So that's my kind way of saying that you're the oldest person in the room, Tom.
That's right. I'll take it.
So, Erin, it was kind of odd because usually you're doing the intros on our videos. So now I'm introing you. But why don't you go ahead and kind of tell us your short journey on how you got, how you made your way into Tom and I's lives?
Sure. Well, John, you did a wonderful job with the intro. I wouldn't have changed a thing except for maybe adding Eye of the Tiger for my song when I come out. Yeah. No, I feel so lucky to be doing what I'm doing now.
Excuse me, 1 second. Not the Notre Dame fight song?
Jeez. Ooh, that's a good question. That'll be my closing song. All right. The alma mater. So yeah, as John mentioned, my entire professional career had been in TV news. So I graduated from Notre Dame and my first job was in Lubbock, Texas, which is market 147 out of 212 markets because you have to start small and work your way up. So I went from Lubbock, Texas to Providence, Rhode Island, Cleveland, Ohio to Chicago. And so I was most recently the morning anchor at CBS Chicago. And COVID changed everything for so many people. And I was able to finally take a real critical look at kind of how much I was sacrificing to stay in the TV news industry. And my husband and I had just had our third baby. And it was the moment of clarity when we just kind of looked at each other one night and I was like, what are we doing? Why are we just grinding it out? And things are so hard. This could be better. So we moved to Minnesota, where my husband is from. And it was a few months later that I got a message on LinkedIn from my now boss and the CEO of Brookstone, Dean Zayed. And he said, hey, Erin, have you ever thought of, leaving TV news? I really liked watching you on CBS Chicago. And so the first thing I said was, who's this guy? Right? Because as a quasi-public person, I would get strange messages from people all the time. But Dean and I had the same CPA. So I called my CPA, said, do you know who this guy Dean Zayed is? And my CPA said, he's wonderful. So Dean and I started talking. And to Dean's credit, he said, listen, I think you'd be an asset at Brookstone. I don't know what that means, but we'll figure it out. So I was able to kind of design my own role, which was playing to my strengths, which is, on-camera presentation, messaging, content creation, branding. And Tom and John, you were one of the first people I started working with. And I've learned so much working with you, not only kind of how to help you make sure your message reaches your clients and prospective clients, but the amount that I've learned about the financial industry is mind-boggling. I now call my parents, I call my friends. I say, now, are you really tax diversified or do you just think you are? I'm kind of annoying at dinner parties now.
Like John is.
Yes, because I always talk taxes. I
know.
The life of the party.
But it's so important. And just for one example, as I mentioned, so I worked in local news markets, and there's only certain stories that you cover, right? Gas prices, house fires, things that don't necessarily affect a lot of people. Whereas now, when things happen like Secure Act 2.0, I learn about it and I say, oh my gosh, this affects so many people. This is 90 new laws that affects retirement planning, company plans, private plans. And then I get to sit down with experts like John and Tom and grill you with these questions that make me smarter and make your clients smarter. And Secure Act isn't getting the coverage it needs to on local news, which allows us to step in and talk about these topics that affect everyone on a deeply personal level.
Yeah. And that's huge, because for me, and I was doing videos before, and when Derek Gabula over at Brookstone reached out and said, hey, we have a new director of communications coming on. I think you really should, look into her. She'll help you out with your videos. And I mean, not only are my videos much more entertaining and get more views, I think they're just more pertinent, and it's much more efficient working with an expert like you. So To be able to sit there and do a Social Security video, and I haven't looked, Erin, but I think we were like around almost 15,000 views. To be able to touch 15,000 people and educate them in a clear and concise manner is invaluable. I mean, that's making an impact, and that's what Tom and I have always sought out to do: impact people's lives, and most notably our clients, but anyone we can impact through education.
Yeah, anybody that's listening, and I really think that you've also helped us be more effective at how we get our message out too, because you've taught us through the interview process. Okay, be a little bit more concise, not so wordy, this, that, the other thing, and I've found that I've carried that over into my everyday business as well. So when I'm speaking with clients or I'm writing an email or something like that, I've become very conscious of that, how I can communicate far better using proper wording and, be a good wordsmith and all that. And
thank you, Tom.
Yeah, no, I mean, in the last year, I've grown as a communicator, and I would attribute 95% of that to you, 1% to John, and then the other 4% to my good looks.
There you go. Well, now it's my turn to thank you guys, because it wasn't until I started working with both of you that I had never opened a Roth account before, right? I had never thought about tax planning. I think I'm like, 95% of Americans, where the only messaging that you get is contribute to your 401k, make sure you contribute the max match, try to max it out. And the fact that other accounts existed, or that I should be thinking about paying my taxes now during a historically low tax rate, if I hadn't been working with you two, I can confidently say there's no way I would have opened my Roth accounts. I've done so many other kind of advanced planning strategies. And like I mentioned, I'm being annoying with my parents and my friends, talking to them about estate planning. And I call and text you guys all the time with random questions. Tommy and I were just talking about, one of his specialized areas, which is the infinite banking concept, Tommy, and whether or not that's relevant for me in my financial situation. So I feel very lucky and very selfish that I get to just pepper you guys with questions all the time.
Well, we're happy to do it, right? Yeah, and to use a phrase from our business, that's the compounding interest effect, right? So our message is getting out. John, you mentioned 15,000 people, but think of the number of people that those 15,000 people spoke to or about our program or your program, and so we didn't touch just 15,000 lives, or you didn't. We've touched tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, and that's always been our goal for this podcast and our social media programs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Erin, you said it. You made a great comment. It's a comment that, especially when I'm working with new clients, that I think the biggest thing we can give our listeners of the podcast, our viewers on YouTube, and anyone who comes into our offices, especially our clients, is just clarity.
Right.
And, really to give people that aha moment of saying, wow, I did not know that, like you said, like the Roths and okay, yeah, because as humans, we live in such our own vacuum, right? Mm-hmm. We don't sit there and think big picture, especially when it's not something that we're trained to do. Tom and I have, spent decades doing this and training ourselves not to have that tunnel visioned approach to planning and really having that comprehensive look. And people don't think, they think, well, I'm not getting the tax deduction today. And they don't realize that, that tax that a lot of people today would have gladly taken that tax deduction 15, 20 years ago to avoid the tax time bombs they have inside their 401ks and IRAs now today.
Right. Right. Well, and what I really appreciate about both of you, not only that you're good humans and, great dads and good friends and all of the above, but I know that you are so passionate about what you're doing and communicating with people. I know that you don't necessarily care if they even become a client. You want people to know that there are strategies that exist right now that you probably don't know about, which is why I think it's so valuable that we have created these kind of video resource libraries, that you do the podcast, that it doesn't, this information is so accessible. You guys do such a good job of explaining the why behind all this, because I feel like everybody feels intimidated by the financial planning industry. I think that we say, well, that's a rich person's game, right? I don't have enough money to even need a financial planner. How would that help me? But what it comes down to is just education first, which I know you guys both value, an education-based relationship with your clients. Nobody should invest in anything they don't understand. And so you're doing that first step of helping people understand what's going on right now and how it could change in the future and how it could affect their future.
Yeah, and I was just on, in getting back to, the interesting topic that Tommy says on the life of parties with, I was just on a mastermind group talking about taxes, and to realize the point that tax law has changed every year since 2017. And with Secure Act 2.0, and we talked about this with Ed, the changes are, all these effective dates, they're going to go through for another, couple years. So we're literally going to have almost a decade of every year having some type of pertinent tax code change, that people have to stay on top of.
Right. Right. And that's why I'm so glad that I get to be selfish and ask you all these questions kind of as they come up. I think I'm so grateful that I have this job, and I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to share your message and your expertise with a wider audience.
I enjoy it, Erin, because one, it keeps me on my toes, but two, it makes me realize, one, that the message we're getting out is valuable because you're not like an everyday person. I don't mean it that way, but if you're asking the question, that means lots of people are asking the question.
Right.
And that means that, I'm not trying to knock anybody else, but that means that people are hungry for information that they're not getting anywhere else.
Right. No, I completely agree. And it's okay. I am definitely a very everyday person when it comes to this stuff. I think I've gotten smarter, but again, I'm grateful for everything you've taught me. And I'm also very glad that in this job, I get to celebrate how awesome you guys are. And so I'm just going to do 2 shameless plugs for both of you. Of course, Tom, we are in the throes right now of getting WABC to come to your event tomorrow, because Tom is presenting to a local Girl Scout troop because they are now earning financial literacy badges, which is amazing. That didn't exist when I was younger. So I think it's fantastic that not only the organization has recognized that financial education should be part of everybody's general ed, right? But the fact that Tom, again, is so dedicated and passionate about helping people, younger people, women, making sure that we all know this information. So that's why I want to, get on the rooftops and make sure that we get a camera out there. So Tommy, fingers crossed that still happens.
Right. Thank you. And I appreciate everything you've done to try to make that happen for us. So.
Well, hopefully we'll be pointing people back in the show notes to when you actually were on. And then John has had the great opportunity to send his message as well to the viewers in NBC San Diego and also OAN Network News. John, you were asked everything from about, the inflation rate to the college debt loan forgiveness program, how that will affect the economy. And this is messaging that affects people's lives, which I'm so happy to share. This isn't a house fire or a car accident. This is something that we sit at home with our spouses and our kids and we talk about this stuff. And it's so great that, these communities are recognizing you guys as the resources you are.
Yeah, well, and thank you. And that was to a credit with you, and I'd mentioned I was doing videos before, and just like every good financial advisor does, where Tommy and I are always measuring metrics, but you brought a different view on those metrics. And like Tommy said, if you're asking the questions, they're questions that most likely the public is really wanting to understand. And Tom made the interesting point of, and I was guilty of this, I would be sending out information that, like, I would read something, I'm like, wow, this is really interesting to me. And it was probably boring as all heck to the audience because in my technical mind, I knew as to be the best advisor that I had to get this information out, but it wasn't the information that was pertinent to the people. And that's something that, you've really helped out. And the other thing is, and Tommy and I take great pride in this. And I tell my, I tell my clients, I go, hey, every annual review, please make sure you're not missing a video, right? Because these videos are my newsletters to you. We are talking about relative, and pertinent information at that time. So, I take great pride, Tommy takes great pride that we're not sending out the automated canned newsletter.
That's right.
That so many advisors are. And I did it in the past. I would just kind of glance over the newsletter. Go, okay, well, great. I'm sending a newsletter out to my clients, but it didn't really have the personal approach. And to me, it was just, it really didn't bring value to the listeners and the clients.
I have to thank both of you, right? Because as the old man in the group, I'm not well versed in the interweb. So, I didn't know how to do videos or podcasts. And it was kind of the furthest thing from my mind because, I still write letters and in script. So it's just so you, not begrudgingly, but you both have dragged me into the 21st century, and I'm very appreciative of that.
Welcome to the century. We're glad to have you with us. No, all I was going to say is, I think John's point underscores something else that maybe people don't recognize with you both being independent financial advisors and fiduciaries, that the other side of that is that you're small business owners. So you wear so many different hats, which brings such a value add to your clients. When we talk about all these tax changes that are going to affect small business owners, it's not just you like standing up on a soapbox, wagging your finger at like what you should be doing right now. It's, hey, listen, I get this. I am living in this world with you. And that's why I'm going to make sure that we find the most efficient solutions for you because I'm going through this with you. And so you guys lead from a place of empathy, trying to make sure that everybody is able to find all these tax breaks that they're entitled to because we love this country, of course, but we don't want to pay Uncle Sam more than we have to, right?
Definitely not tipping the government. Definitely.
All right. I have kind of a burning question. And we talked a little bit about this off camera before we started, but Erin, I'm very curious as to know what are maybe the top thing or the top few things that maybe you thought were true about finances or financial planning before you started working with us that you have found different in either real life or the application of the things that we talk about?
That's such a good question. I guess
mine usually
that. Ooh, what a probing and thoughtful, insightful question. I think that probably like most people, I figured that I would have to have, $1 million, $2 million in my retirement account or as a salary for any sort of financial planning to be relevant to me. And again, that was because I say this, honestly, from a place of ignorance. I mean, I didn't know that, like I said, that Roths existed. And that is something that is accessible to everyone now. I mean, I know there are limits and we don't need to go into all the minutia of it, but just the fact that you don't have to have buckets of money until you start planning about your future and your retirement and your legacy, right? And Tom, so this is, John, I don't know if you know this, but the first time that Tom and I first started working together, we had a phone call and it was like, all right, so what's important to you? Tell me what you're passionate about. which immediately was followed up with him sending me 4 books in the mail. Because again, that's where he leads from, is a point of an education-based relationship. So the first one was Becoming Your Own Banker, and then it was The Richest Man in Babylon, and I finally just finished The Secret Asset. And what's great about him is, again, he always makes himself available to me, but maybe I shouldn't say that. I should just say you pick up the phone when I call you on Sunday on your own time. But again, it's this information that basically everybody starts at the same place, right? Start a budget, figure out what you can save, figure out what you can invest, and learn how to make, as I sent you that line from 30 Rock, which is my favorite show. I want to do that thing that rich people do. I want my money to make more money, right? And there's just so many easy strategies and then advanced strategies. So that's what I would say was different. I was always thinking 401k, throw the money in, throw the money in, throw the money in, and never thought anything more about it. But now I'm diversified.
Yeah, and that's a key thing. You're working, and that takes, discipline and perseverance to go through, especially, in the news industry where you had a lot of up and down changes, a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. But then, as we always talk about, to especially, pre-retirees or people moving into retirement, in the accumulation years, you're hiking up that mountain and you're putting, all that money away. But it's pretty, once people say, oh, I'm going to put $500 a paycheck in, and it's just automated. And there's not a whole lot of thought that has to go into it because you're living on a paycheck. And as long as you have that paycheck, you can pay your bills and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're shoving that money away. Right. Life is good. And Tommy, you, right? Ed Slott mentioned how you hiked up to the top of the mountain, and you've told me this time and time before, how, when we've talked about our adventures in life, how climbing up that mountain, it's tough, but the most dangerous part is that decumulation, that descent down that mountain.
Right. Exactly. Because people aren't prepared. They're not ready for that. They exert everything going up the mountain. And again, I'm not trying to demean anybody, but in good market conditions, you could throw a dart at a newspaper and pick a good stock and try to make money, right? But it's during these other times, and it's whether it's the downside of the market or the downside of retirement, meaning, hey, you don't have that paycheck every week that you're talking about, John, and now I have to take from my funds. Which is the right fund to take it from? Do I take it while the markets are down, while I'm losing money? How do I? So, there's lots of stuff that goes into it.
How do I design my income stream to where I can live off my assets in a predictable and sustainable way and not have to take money from my assets when the market's down and we have sequence of return risk? And and when you brought up a good point about kind of this is the time where people make mistakes, and that's been well documented, especially through Dalbar, which I've mentioned I don't know how many times on my videos, but MIT doing those studies. But this Vanguard report that I'm looking at, where it talks about 3% in net returns, it says that 0 to 200 basis points, which is 0 to 2%, is coming from behavioral coaching. And, part of that is the education. And on the behavioral coaching and that simplified education, that's a lot to credit to you and the importance of your role as us getting out the word that, hey, yes, there's a lot of complexities to this industry, but we're going to make it simple, and we're going to make it, to where we can cover it in a couple minutes, because, that's how you present the story and to get people to truly, take action. And I'm not saying take action just with us, but to take action to improve their financial freedom and their future.
Right. Well, here's the thing with behavioral finance. People are crazy.
I was a cop for 20 years. You're not teaching me that anything.
You're right.
I don't think it's limited to just that. But
But yeah, John, thanks for what you're saying, because I also kind of neglected to mention that it's not like I was just sitting in my cubicle and having part of my paycheck go to a 401k. I was working with some investment experts. I won't say where, but every year I would sit down with them and I would say, so what should I be doing? What can I be doing? And I swear to goodness, every year their advice to me was the same: max out your 401k. That was it. That was it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not like I was having the conversation. I was asking the questions. It turns out I wasn't asking the right person.
Or the follow-up question, why? Right? So I'm always trying to teach my daughter, okay, somebody makes a statement to you, but the next question is, what's the proof? Why? How? You always have to ask that next question.
Yeah. Yeah. And even with my clients, I tell them, listen, if I don't clearly explain to you why we're doing this, please ask that question. Understand that, for every strategy, for every investment, there's always going to be, something you need to be aware of, that, the pros and cons. There are no silver bullets. And I always make the joke that if someone's saying, hey, I've got the perfect investment, that it's all great, and there's no cons to it, then, just say, yeah, I thought you were dead, Mr. Madoff, and get out of their office.
Yep,
Run,
Mr. Ponzi.
Run, don't walk away.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, no, that's so, Tom, I guess that's what I would say is number one. I mean, okay. I hadn't realized that there are so many strategies that are important and accessible to everyone that we all don't just know and that we all aren't taught from a very early age.
Excellent.
Well, and that's a kind of going back to the Girl Scout, where Tommy's teaching them. I was taught from a young age because I grew up in that industry. And I look at my friends versus, obviously my friends and I, we were making the same money as we were in the same law enforcement industry, but I was miles ahead of them because I understood the importance of that snowball effect, right? Starting as little as and Erin, you've said in multiple times that, yeah, I always thought we had to have millions to really have a good investment strategy, but just doing something and getting started and getting that snowball effect rolling, and it's hard because it's in the now, you don't realize the magnitude of your decisions and your discipline. And then 10 years later, you have your own house where your friends are renting and your friends are buying all the boats and all that. And you're just feeling like, I'll give you gas money. I don't want that headache. I don't want that cost. It's not worth it. And so, that's been the huge part of why we wanted you on today, because, the importance of people learning the simple things. And yes, the old Chinese proverb, when's the best, time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. But if you didn't, start planting it now and start moving forward, because any incremental change that you start to make today, whether it's in your personal life or financial life, it may have huge impacts to your retirement, your future retirement self, and the legacy you leave to, your family or your charity of choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Which is why when, I'm 70 years old, I'll still be writing thank you notes to you both, and I'll have my kids start writing them as well.
Well, Erin, you're not going to be writing thank you notes to us both. Tommy's going to be like 120 at that time.
I knew that was coming.
So, well, Tommy, you got any more questions for our or the reverse of the news anchor interview story here?
No, I'm late for my Geritol pill, so we better wrap this one up.
Well, Erin, 34 minutes. This is, probably giving you just the cringe effect, as we always try to wrap things up in 5 to 6 minutes. But, we want to thank you for, coming on the podcast and sharing your experience of not having, the know-how of the financial industry, and just kind of how being around the financial industry and catching the little tidbits has had an impact on your life.
Yeah, absolutely. I am so grateful that you guys are having me, and I look forward to sharing this podcast. I mean, I have already, but this one specifically for some self-promotion, to sharing this with friends and family too, because like we're talking about, I'm tapping people on the shoulder now and saying, hey, do you know that we're in historically low tax rates right now, and you can take advantage of that? And it's not coming from like anywhere except for I want everybody to be happy and recognize that there are strategies out there that, we think are inaccessible, but they're not. So you guys have made me smarter. You have made my life better, my retirement better. So even when Tommy's 100, I'm still going to be grateful.
Yes.
And I'm looking forward to when we finish editing this, and then I get to call Erin, and she gets to walk me through how to get it on social media for the.
That's true. Each time there's a text that says, "How do I do this again?"
And then Erin goes, "Tommy, your podcast producers actually put this on there, so you don't have to worry about it."
No, he doesn't put it on LinkedIn.
Yeah, so Tommy has to do the audiogram, which is happy. I'm glad though that you don't remember, Tommy, because it gives us an excuse to FaceTime every month.
There you go.
Yeah. So, and another shameless plug for Erin. I know Dean, if you're listening, Erin is
time for a raise.
Worth her weight in gold.
Thank you.
And then some.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, thanks again, Erin. Erin, do you have you've got your own little podcast or video series of your own, don't you?
I do. Yes. No, it's because I was in TV news for so long. My bestest girlfriend from TV news, meteorologist Megan Glaros, she and I were on mornings together at CBS Chicago. We started a YouTube series called Broken News with Erin and Megan, where we peel back the curtain on all the craziness that goes into TV news, probably more than people realize. So it's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, so folks, if you're just surfing YouTube after one of Tommy and I's videos and you want some good entertainment, I've watched it a few times. I actually watch it to try to gain insight to how to make my videos better. So
it's more of a how not to run an industry than anything else.
So, hey, you learn from that stuff too. So
It's true.
All right. Well, Erin, you've been a blessing to both Tommy and I. Thanks again for coming on. Thanks for everything you do for our personal practice, our message, and more importantly, the impact that you're making every day on the viewers and the listeners of our message. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mrs. Erin Kennedy.
Woo!
So, folks, that's going to wrap up today's episode, and we're coming into tax season here pretty soon. So we have a couple other podcasts that are going to be geared towards not taxes, but actually identity theft next month, because tax season's a huge time where identity theft happens. And, folks, if you want to hear about something that's going to bring value to your life. And Tommy and I have said this in the past. We're not just talking about financial stuff, but whether it's, nutrition, how to take care of ourselves, because money and health are the two biggest issues for retirees, and they're both intertwined, right? If you're not managing your money well, it causes stress, which deteriorates your health. But if you're not taking care of yourself and you don't have proper health protocols, then you're going to be in the hospital or at the doctor's office, and that's going to cost a lot more money. So if there's any topics, hit us up at the retirehappypodcast.com and let us know. And this show is about you and bringing value to all of our listeners and subscribers. So keep that in mind. And Erin, we will be talking to you on video the next time, both Tommy and I. And thank you very much.
Thanks, Erin.
Thank you both so much. This was tons of fun. I hope we can do it again.
Absolutely.
All right, folks. So until then, retire happy, and we'll see you next time.
It's easy to get in touch with John and Thomas. If you're more on the West Coast, give John a call at 858-935-6210. That's 858-935-6210, or go online to GoSecurus.com. That's GoSecurus.com. If you're more of an East Coaster, then call Thomas, 973-394-0623. That's 973-394-0623, and online at internationalfinancial.com. That's internationalfinancial.com. And you can, of course, always just check the description or the show notes section of today's show for all that contact information. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcasting apps, and we'll see you next time on the Retire Happy Podcast.
Investment advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, LLC BCM, a registered investment advisor. BCM, Securus Financial, and International Financial Advisory Group are independent of each other. Insurance products and services are not offered through BCM, but are offered and sold through individually licensed and appointed agents. The opinions expressed by John Iamarino, Thomas O'Connell, and guests on this show are their own and are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Past performance cannot be used as an indicator to determine future results. Any strategies mentioned may not be suitable for everyone. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for you. Before acting on any information mentioned, please consult with a qualified tax or investment advisor to determine if it is suitable for your specific situation. This program is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information with regard to the subjects covered.